Hello everyone, my name is Mark Morgenstern. Andrea and I are the owner of Morningstar Prairie Plants, and behind me is Morningstar Prairie, which we created. This was all lawn, which we created from the year 2000 until now, and I add on to it every year. This year at Wildscapes Workshop we're doing a plant talk, and this is going to start the plant talk. What I'm going to do is show you individual plants that'll be for sale. And I also have these market signs that we use that gives a little information on their growing condition. We buy native plants. There are several reasons, but I'm going to name quite a few. They're freeze tolerant, flood tolerant, drought tolerant, heat tolerant. They actually are fire tolerant, so you can burn, and they like our heavy clay soils. And people always talk about our crappy soil here. Well, that soil, that heavy clay, is what the prairies were made out of. And so we're going to go through each one of these things individually. I'll show you some examples. First quality of native plants I want to talk about is freeze tolerance. In January of 2018, I was given a talk at Native Plant Society, and I brought 2 trays of these 4-inch pots. I'll show you this one. I had 2 trays of these. And the night before, it was in the mid-20s, and these were frozen solid as a rock because the table had water on it. I actually shut the water off for the freeze, but they had already been wet. They were hard as a rock. I put them in my truck the night before, and I took them to the meeting, gave my talk, and I let people pick them up at the end of the talk. They had never thought in my pickup the night before, or until I took them in the hall. They were still blocks of ice. And every one of those, as soon as they thawed out, started growing. So the frozen, hard as a rock 4-inch pot survived the freeze tolerance. One more thing I want to talk about freeze tolerance. This year, last winter, I went to Home Depot. I wanted to buy a light. I couldn't even get to the lights because the low is going to be in the upper 20s, like 28. They had every single plant that's out there in the nursery in the aisles of the store. So think about that. Everything they're selling there in these big box stores won't survive 28 degrees. Most of them originated in China and Japan. That's why we grow native plants. You don't have to bring them inside. You don't even have to cover them. This year, I covered a few pepper plants in my garden to save the peppers. But I don't cover anything. And you drive around in a cold day and all you see is people's sheets all over their front yard. So we can get away from that. You don't need that. You can buy these native perennials. They'll tolerate that. They don't care about ice storms, freeze, or any of that won't hurt them. So that's something really to consider about why to buy native plants. Hello everyone, next quality I want to talk about is flood tolerance. Where I'm standing now in Hurricane Harvey in August of 2017, I would be knee deep in water. The current was flowing from this direction across here. You can actually see ripples in the current going through my woods and down to the Brazos River. Now this subdivision's on a high bank of the Brazos, so we don't flood here. For 10 miles going east was all underwater. The churches and rural homes and anything that wasn't built up was underwater, flooded. We couldn't get across there for several weeks before the water level fell. So these plants were all here. This was all built already. And you can see that nothing croaked in the flood. I mean, it didn't kill them, didn't hurt them. And the water, we had 36 inches of rain at my house in over a 6-day period. So that's incredible. It all takes that, doesn't bother them. So you don't ever have to worry about your garden flooding. They're all flood tolerant once they're established. My intern Emily Russell, on her last day was January 5th when she came home and helped me for the first time on her Christmas break from college. And so we did a burn that day. I always do a prescribed burn in this area. Usually when it rains, the St. Augustine doesn't absorb much water, so it was basically flooded all the way around this prairie that's kind of been built up with all these plants. So this was behind me was nothing but ash in January. And you get growth. 4 inches of grass will come up within a week of the fire. Within 2 weeks, it's getting really green. Within 3 to 4 weeks, you can't even tell there was a burn unless you look around and physically see some ash around the base of the plants. So it recovers really quickly, rain or shine, doesn't matter. Doesn't even need rain. They burnt an ash prairie in a drought one time. That thing came up and bloomed just spectacular blooms of muley, love grass, and everything. A rosin weed. Everything was flowering there, and they didn't have any rain at all. So irregardless of rain, these plants have deep roots. These are Indian plantains. Arnoglossum ovatum. I love these guys. They're going to turn white at the top. You know, in a drought year, they might be 3 foot. This one's over 6 foot. They get up 7 foot, but they're just a gorgeous addition to the pocket prairie. Next quality of native plants I want to talk about is heat tolerance. In this area, I'm building a prairie. It had this is kind of like a bad area on my property, so I scalped this really short grass. I did use some herbicide the first time, but I think with mowing when it was hitting triple digits will help. But this area had just 2 plants in it. It had pepper vine and sumpweed. I have a sumpweed, just 2. That's the only thing that was in this area, we thought. But we mowed and scalped this, and I started planting it when this is July, when the temperatures were hitting triple digits. We started this area. You could see we put in, I think about 80 something plants. I drilled 165 holes from back there to the front. I'm going to do the same in a second row, maybe a third row. And we're going to plant this out. And you can see these things have only been watered once. We had 0 rain the last 3 weeks. This ground is full of cracks. And then we get surprise visitors after I scalp mowed it. And check this out. This is with 0 rain. Look at this viridis. I'm sure this is probably off 1 corm. You see that 1, 2, 3. They're probably off a single root down here. These tap roots, I saw a friend of mine dig one on the side of the road one time. You can think about the size of a Coke can. I'm thinking about that being 9 feet deep. And so it penetrates down. So these actually were dormant. They're waiting for something to wake them up. When I mowed it, boom, there they are. And there's several more I see popping up already. So the viridis was there. They're going to wait. Something happens, fire, burn, mowing, any of that will stimulate them to come up. So let's walk along here and see what we've done with triple digit heat, watered once. And you can see we're doing a bigger grass mixture back here. A normal prairie is like 80% grasses, 20% forbs. My front, because it's my neighbors all see it, that's probably, I'd say, 60% forbs, 40% grasses. So this is going to be more like a tall grass prairie. We've got a lot of yellow Indian grass and little blue stem, some forb. Here I got a Pennsylvania smartweed. I have a Verbena zutha, a blue Salvia azure, a little blue stem. So we're going to mix this up. But this is in triple digit heat, watered once. Armand Bayou a few years ago passed up 300,000 1-gallon pots in the ground, and they water them once. We walk around the plant, get all the air out of the hole, water it. First you fill the hole with water. You put the plant in, a wet plant. They should be watered the night before. You put that in the hole. You had to put all the soil back, even though you're displacing 1 gallon. We put all the soil back. And then we walk around the plant and with our feet in a circular motion until you hear the squishing sound. You know you got all the air out of the hole. And Armin Bayou has over 80% of them survive. They never go back. And they plant 12 months a year there. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit more about our heavy clay soil. They shrink when there's no rain, like now. This is July. We haven't had any rain in a month. And it's supposed to start up again this week, hopefully. But these cracks, when the soil shrinks, it's big enough that I could put my foot in this one. You see that crack there? The soil is separated in here. And then right here is a Pluchia odorata, sweet scent plant. That's actually a wetland plant. And look at how good it's doing. Beautiful flowers. It's starting to make seed. These little fluff balls be the seed. So this soil kept the eastern migration of farmers out of the plains because it was so heavy and they couldn't plow it. Well, John Deere moved from Vermont to Illinois. He ended up setting up shop in Moline, Illinois. And the soil there, he saw that the plows didn't work very good. So what he invented was a self-scouring plow. And they called it, you know, by 1850 he was selling 10,000 of these a year. And they called it the plow that broke the plains. So the way our area was farmed all started with that, the self-scouring plow. He made a disc where he got a bunch of worn out saw blades and put them at different angles on a machine. And that's how they disked it. It started off with worn out saw blades. And so that's what broke the plains, where they could actually start farming this. And you know, out here in our neck of the woods, they grow a lot of milo, corn for silage, for cattle feed. Milo is like a grain for feed. They grow a lot of that here. Also rice, you know, they flood that clay, put the rice in, build the berms, you know, flood it. And they get a couple crops a year of rice. So that's how this area was eventually farmed. Started off with self-scouring plow by John Deere, 1850s. Mountain mint, I'm going to kneel down because these are kind of short. And this is a cool plant because mountain mint is native to Harris, Fort Bend County. It's a local plant. The word mountain came from a guy who was hiking in the mountains of Pennsylvania looking for useful plants. He gave it a common name of mountain mint. There was 20 species of this. This is our local one, Pycnanthemum tenuifolium. And this is our local one. There used to be 20 species. One in the Carolinas they think is extinct, so there's 19 left. But this plant is really neat because for a couple reasons. Number one, you can rub the leaves on your arms for mosquito repellent, which the Europeans, when they moved in this area, that's what they used it for. You can also make tea. It's edible. And you can cut the leaves in tea. It's not really aggressive here, but if you plant this in a raised bed garden, it could actually go berserk. One of my customers planted it in a raised bed, rich garden soil, and it grew so prolific it went through the fence. And she said the next door neighbor comes over with scissors and cuts the plant, takes it inside to use it. So great plant, easy to grow, heavy clay soil, and these seeds will turn black when they're ripe. And you actually have to cut them with scissors because if you try to pull the seeds off, the whole plant will come out of the ground. But it's a really good perennial. And here's our market sign we use when we sell them. And there's insects all over these right now. Our next plant is one of my favorites. This is Pluchia odorata. The first time I grew this, somebody at Native Plant Society gave me some packet of seed and said, you really need to grow this. It's a really cool plant, super fragrant. Some people say it stinks. I think it smells good. But it has multicolor, 3 colors, purple, pink, and white, all in one. It's just beautiful. And they're easy to grow. They're a wetland plant, but you can plant these in your yard and give them a little extra water and they'll grow. I've seen this, I'll tell you the range of this plant. I've seen this behind the dunes at Matagorda Bay, and I saw it in a lake in Georgetown. And then people send me pictures from a lake in Sugar Land where they see it. Is this it? And I said, yeah, that's it. So it has a huge range, but you don't see it in really large quantities. Great plant. Common name of sweet scent. And there it is. Our next featured plant is Texas coneflower, Rudbeckia texana. This is our coneflower, we like to call it, because it's south of I-10, a couple counties east of here, and then it goes into Louisiana a bit. So it's only a coastal prairie plant, and it's just awesome. These are beautiful. And they're easy to grow. They like wet, but see, this is a drought, we're kind of in a droughty period right now, but these are doing fantastic. Here's our market sign with a little description and a picture. So our next featured plant is the rattlesnake master. And this plant, I got a lot of it here, but there's tons of it on Nash Prairie. It's every square yard has X amount of these plants. There's just hundreds of thousands of them. But this plant is a good indicator of a quality like platinum prairie. It's also visited by more insects than any plant on the prairie. And they have video proof. A guy in Louisiana filmed this, and I think the number was over 250 insects visiting this plant. And here's our market sign that we use. And then here's the flower. They white and they turn brown. The first one I like here is Salvia azure. This is a common name blue pitcher sage. We collect seeds of this on Nash Prairie. I'll be collecting them here this year. But in September, the monarchs just are all over this thing for the nectar when they're heading back to Michoacan, Mexico. So it's a really good plant, and it also can tolerate a lot of shade if you have that condition at your place. Here's our market sign we use. Gives a little description and pictures. And then here's the flower. Okay, our next plant is going to be this Gulfer Vane. By the way, this is being filmed by my intern, Emily Russo, who goes to Tarleton University, and she's studying
horticulture management. Hello.
Thank you, horticulture management. She may be my boss someday. But anyways, this is Gulfer Vane. We should have some of these at the plant sale. Verbena zutha. I love plants or names, taxonomy names that start with an X. Verbena zutha. It's growing. And here's our market sign with the flowers. Yeah, and you can see those flowers, beautiful. Now all these plants are totally drought tolerant, even swamp sunflower. There's tons of them out here. But look at these cracks in the ground. We're in a drought, a mini drought, not a big drought, but check out those cracks. So our next featured plant is going to be the one you're seeing the beautiful swallowtail on, which is Liatris acidota. Or some people still call it blazing star or thin. But anyways, here it is, beautiful. I don't even want to disturb him. So nectaring like crazy on that beautiful swallowtail. And here's our market sign that we use for the blazing star. And here comes our butterfly. Close enough to hear the wings flap. We're going to talk about is Liatris pycnostachya. I actually printed enough market signs that I can actually spell that plant. Pycnostachya is great. These are about 3.5 foot tall. I've seen them on a prairie on 288 where they were over my head. I'm 6 foot tall, so these were like 6'4" plants. But when you're growing them, you'll see the top here turns flat, and that's how you can tell they've reached their full height. Just gorgeous. Known as blazing star. Here's our market sign we use. Is a spotted bee balm. This is a short-lived perennial, Monarda punctata. I was given the seeds collected North Harris County. I'm growing it now, so I collect my own seeds here. This is a 1 to 3 foot tall, beautiful flowers. You can see them, and also this you can make. It's edible. You can make people make medicinal tea out of the leaves of this plant, which is really cool. And here's our market sign. And then we're going to zoom in on some of the flowers. Our next plant is rosinweed sunflower, real prolific. I actually get 12 months of bloom off of this plant. It's easy to grow, heavy clay soil. It's really drought tolerant. And this winter, every time we had a frost, the blooms would fall off and they'd sprout back up. Also on Nash Prairie, when they mowed or burned it, these will come up and you can have a 3-inch tall plant and it'll have a bloom on it, which is just great. So the variety is Sophium gracile, and the flowers are prolific. They're easy to grow from seed. The seeds actually form behind the flower. The first time I grew this, I pulled over on the side of 1462 over in Alvin. I saw something interesting and I went over there and I grabbed a flower and these seeds fell off in my hand, and I was actually growing this before I knew what it was. I went to a meeting and talked to Tom Solomon, and they talked about this. And see, I'll show you. If you grab the flowers, and these paper shells right behind the flower head are the actual seed. They're little paper shells. And there's an individual there. And this is our market sign we use when I sell things. Okay, this segment we're going to do walk around the whole prairie. On Emily's last day of her Christmas break when she was here, we burned this, and that was January 5th. To my left, this was all ash. We had a really good, perfect wind, a really good burn. This is nothing but ash. And so we're going to walk around and show you what it looks like now. Okay, here we're going to walk through the latest addition. I add on to this every year. I drilled holes with my tractor. I think we did 110 plants in this section. So we'll walk through this addition. This is a recently added plant. Grassy, Beatrice, Indian grass, brown seed pastellum, Florida pastellum. Snow on the prairie, starts off green and turns variegated. These also glow in the moonlight. They're really cool. So this section was all added on. Up to this point. Aquatic milkweed, Asclepias perennis. You see how it's in the shade here, the woods. Here's my stake to mark this plant. We're going to need a lot more rain if I'm going to get seed pods off of this. But perennis I collect here on my property. They're easy to grow. You don't need any cold stratification. You lay them in a cell, lightly cover the seeds, and they'll pop right up. The seed has no silk. Like tropical milkweed has silk, flies around. Green milkweed, I'll show you some silk of that. It flies all over the place. These seeds are like this are like little boats. So when you get a huge rain event, the seeds drop to the ground, they float away and pop up in new locations. And normally every year I went around this spring after we had quite a bit of rain, and I put all new stakes on them to mark them for the seed collection. So that's one of my stakes. I repaint them every year and go around because they'll be in new locations that they weren't in before. And I'll show you the silk I'm talking about. This is the green milkweed, which there's thousands of them out here. And you can just see the silk flying around. So this is dispersed by the wind. Yeah, these white puffs are everywhere. We collected a 5-gallon bucket full today. Our next plant is Amsonia, blue star, eastern blue star. I found this colony when I bought this place in 2000, and when I first mowed it, it came up and bloomed, and the butterflies swarming on the blooms, I could see them from my back porch, which is quite a ways out, at least 100 yards. But anyways, this colony is here. It's here every year. I mark it with a stake to collect seed. Now the strange thing about this plant is if they're single stalked, they will never have a seed. Like this one, single stalk, no seed. This one, branched, 3 stalks, there's the seed. Looks like a green bean, actually, like a French string bean. And I'm watching them. When they start to turn brown, I'm going to collect these. And what's really cool is they're little red grooved, maroon colored grooved cylinders inside this pod. You break them open, pull them cylinders out, lay it on top of a flat, and a root will come out of one end, turn down into this potting mix, and then a plant will pop up from that root. So they're really, really cool. This is a really ancient prairie plant just by the way it behaves. It's unlike any other. But about the scientific name, here's my market sign. Amsonia tabernae montana, really cool name. Native Plant Society had a plant of the month, Amsonia tabernae montana. But you know how scientific names, there's lumpers and splitters. Well, this now, Bonap considers this to be Amsonia repens. Tabernae montana is only in 2 counties in East Texas. But a friend of mine that works on this kind of stuff said they think they're going to go back to the old name of Tabernae montana, hence I never changed my sign. Okay, the next plant I'm going to talk about is brown-eyed Susan, sometimes called black-eyed Susan. They're both the same plant. Rudbeckia hirta. And basically brown-eyed Susans are easy to grow. This is one you could actually get seed and throw them in the fall and they'll come up. So brown-eyed Susan, Rudbeckia hirta, like it's a Rudbeckia family, just like our Texas coneflowers, Rudbeckia texana. So Rudbeckia maxima is a tall one that's not from our area. So this is one, they got different color variations sometimes. This one's got some maroon around the petals. And some of them are just plain yellow. So this is a great plant, really super easy to grow, and everybody needs them. And there's our market sign.
All right.
Okay, we're going to talk about Indian blanket, Gaillardia puchella. There's also one from Deer Park Prairie called Gaillardia aestivalis. And the difference is the aestivalis, the ray flowers don't go in a complete circle. So here's a Gaillardia puchella, Indian blanket. These are, there's even a different one a couple counties west here that's super maroon color. If you've ever been out in Washington County, that direction, you'll see the maroon ones. Like I say, Deer Park Prairie has the aestivalis, and I think we might get some of those from Audubon for the plant sale. But here's my market sign. These are great. They're real easy to grow, and we're going to have a bunch of these. Okay, next plant I want to talk about is Louisiana catchflies, Silene subceolata. This one, I would recommend growing this in a pot. It's an East Texas plant and beautiful red flowers. But I had mine in a pot on the back porch. I'm going to do another one. So the Louisiana catchfly, like I say, gorgeous red flowers, lots of wildlife attracted to it, hummingbirds and native insects. So it's a great pollinator plant, red flowers, but I recommend it in a pot because a lot of people that bought them said they didn't survive. Well, they put them in that clay soil, and East Texas is sandy. And it's also acid soil. So this is more East Texas plant, but everybody loves it, so put it in a pot. It'll do really, really well. So that's Louisiana catchfly. So a lot of people don't realize, but this chili pekin is a native Texas plant. These fiery little devils are hot as Hades. You can see the red and orange. They're just beautiful bird peppers, they call them. Birds will eat these and drop them, and they'll spread. I'm hoping this guy spreads. I'm growing a few of these. But here's our market sign. Capsicanum, which basically includes all peppers, annual peppers. It says annual / perennial, so in a warmer climate this guy would survive. With global warming, it might survive here. Okay, our next plant is Indian plantain. This one's Arnoglossum ovatum. They can get really tall. You see them above my head. They're really neat. The leaves kind of clasp the stems. They're going to have white flowers at the top, and they're easy to grow. I love these things, how they just come up on their own. These are spread. I didn't plant this many, but these are spread all over the place. There's another variety called Arnoglossum plantaginum. It's called groove stem. Those have already faded for the year. I had one in my back pasture. I already collected seed from it. So that's the spring one. This is the fall summer one. And like I say, these haven't even bloomed yet. They're fixing to open really soon. Great plant, just a really neat feature. If you pan down here, you can see this ground cover is all Maximilian sunflower all through here, and there's swamp sunflower. So this really stands out because we're on the street. This is right on the street of my neighborhood, my subdivision. So these, when this stuff all flowers, you know, the neighbors just love it. So that keeps them happy. Here's my market sign with the description. Okay, here's a Missouri ironweed. Vernania missourica is the Latin, scientific name. I shouldn't say Latin because a lot of the names are Greek. So this is one that came up in my wife's vegetable garden. You can see the okra and cucumbers next to it. So I usually dig them up. I don't get them all. She said, get them out of there. You know, I try to dig them and pot them, but I don't get them all. And this guy is just going to be fantastic when it blooms. You can see it's over 6 foot. I got one in this other bed next to it here. 7 foot. It's in rich garden soil though. So the ones out there in the field are usually 4.5, 5 feet tall. And like I say, they form a round colony. We're going to go out there and find one now, and I'll show you a picture of the round colony from the roots. And they come up every year. Fantastic pollinator. I got a video. I love to show it to people at the market, but it's so sunny it's hard to see. But just swarms of every kind of skipper you can imagine. Long-tail white stripes, swallowtails, but just all kinds of butterfly species. This is a great plant, and we're going to show you a colony now of Missouri ironweed. You can see how yellow these are. They're really struggling. We need some rain. It won't affect them, but they're rhizomious. So this is about a 2-foot circle, and all the plants we'll find out here are like that. And here's my market sign. So with the coming rain, this should perk right up and pop up and bloom. I want to talk about one of my favorite all-time plants that I found on my property when I bought this place in 2001. These were all over the place. When they first came up and bloomed with the purple, you could see butterflies from the back porch just swarming over these. And every species you can imagine loves to nectar on this plant. It's also got, you see the flowers there. It's also got these really neat leaves with deep cut. What do you call those?
Ribbing? Is it ribbing or?
There's a name for that. I gotta look it up in a. So the leaves are really cool. They're really distinctive. You can see by the deep ribbing in them. So these come up and they form colonies. You can see here, got this one, this one, this one, over here. They got rhizomes that come out. So if you buy one, a colony might have one stalk the first year, but they usually top out about a 2-foot diameter circle. And I'll see clumps of them. They're all over this property. The next plant I want to talk about is Maximilian sunflower. These, I'm hoping that Audubon Nursery comes through for us because I have trouble growing these guys. Certain native plants don't like pots, and this is one of them. Maximilian sunflower, I always like to relate it to a peach tree where the leaves have a crease in the middle just like peach does. So that's how a really easy way to identify it. And the flowers are absolutely gorgeous. This, like I say, this guy's a little difficult for me to grow. Maybe if I dig up plants and they just, even in the early spring when I dig them up and pot them, they just look like hell until I put them in the ground. Then they take off. So anyways, this is a beautiful guy. Here comes a bee visiting it. Pollinator. It's a great pollinator plant, great sunflower. Can be a little bit aggressive, but I like that out here. I got room for them to spread. So this is a butterfly garden. My wife bought a pollinator mix from Native American seed, and it's done really well. She's got a lot of different plants in here. So here's our native passion flower. You can see the butterfly. He's going to lay eggs on there. This is a host plant. Passiflora incarnata. You can always tell ours from the South American one. See the 3 lobes? If you get one with 5 lobes, it's not from around here. So Passiflora incarnata. The bloom kind of faded, but they're absolutely gorgeous. They come up all over. These are 3 foot, 4 foot out here in a pasture. But if you put them in a garden, they'll go berserk. They'll climb over everything. And he's just hanging around. Look at that. Gorgeous. Come on. Here. Here. Come on. Ah. He's more interested in that plant than me holding it. Our next featured plant is partridge pea. This is a really neat pollinator. Bees love this thing. Our gardens demo gardens at Seabourn Creek Nature Park, the bees are all over it. It's kind of aggressive for our raised bed demo gardens, so we constantly thin them out. And but this is the partridge pea. And I'm going to grab my market sign. It's Read that for me, Emily.
Chem Christa Fesculata.
Very good.
No.
So there's the sign. I can't pronounce the Latin, but Emily helped me.
Those are the flowers.
Hi there. I want to show you a grass. This is Eastern Gamma grass. It's huge. It's got great big seeds, largest grass seed in North America. It's easy to grow. And several years ago, I told Flo Hanna that all my plants on my property came from taking cuttings of root cuttings off of one plant. I needed more diversity, so she gave me seed. I'm going to show you the seed. It's the largest grass seed in North America. It grows in segments at the end of these stalks. This is a beautiful plant because it also had red hairs on them when they're hanging over. But here's the grass seed. Native Americans ground this into a flower, and there's some universities right now working on this as a substitute for a corn, the food additive type of corn. So this doesn't need any nitrogen. Corn, they just nuke the heck out of it with nitrogen to get it to grow here. So this is the seed, and hopefully they'll get that going in the future. I'm going to show you one with the red hairs hanging off of the segmented seeds. You can see that there. Beautiful. And I call this the Flo Hanna part of my prairie because all these came from the seeds she gave me. I grew the plants and put them here. This was burned in February of this year. And they just love fire. I'm going to show you one of our native switchgrasses. Look how big this guy is. And I'm going to walk in here. And so this is our native switchgrass. You got to watch out. There's a cultivar called Alamo switchgrass that came from along the Frio River where they got 3 inches of soil. You bring it in this area, it goes berserk. It'll actually grow up and actually fall over. So this is a giant species. It's got hollow stems, and you can see I'm 6 foot tall. So look at this clump. And the way to tell Alamo from switch, a friend of mine, my guru Thomas Solomon, told me if a small animal can walk through the base of the plant, it's probably the native switchgrass. If they can't, it's going to be Alamo, because the clump at the base of an Alamo is so tightly compacted. So I got Alamo on my property. I never wanted it, but I planted a seed packet that was given to me. That was a prairie and a seed packet, and it was in there. So I'll never get rid of it totally, but growing these is great because they're just huge. And so if you got the space, great grass. Hello everyone, the next plant I want to talk about is perennial wine cup. Wine cup seeds are extremely expensive, so what I did, I planted them in this big pot on the back porch, and they hang over. We come out here with scissors and cut the seeds, and so I can save a lot of seed in a small amount of space. So right now I don't have any blooms on this, but we just watered it. It may rebloom. You can also do these in a hanging basket with extra water. So they hang over the side, and I grow the perennial one, Calero. I'm going to butcher this Latin because I'm no good at it. Calero involucrata. So here's the market sign. And there's my cat Pickles, who's being a pest right now. Had her since 2002, if you can believe it. And so this wine cup has a corm in it, looks like a carrot. And it sits there dormant until it gets the signal in the spring. And then the runners come out from the top of that and run through the grass. This is not an erect one. This lays flat on the ground. But they'll send out runners and bloom when they get the signal about spring, you know, and the little, like I say, the corm looks like a little carrot. And it sits there, and then they fade. Right now it's July, so they faded already. This guy with extra water, I probably get it to rebloom. But here's our market sign that we use. And so you can see the picture of it. Beautiful flowers. Okay, just for fun, I want to throw in a few trees that are native to this area. This is a Mexican buckeye. Don't let the word Mexican fool you. It's native to this area. It grows along the Brazos River north of wild colonies grow along the Brazos River north of Richmond, Rosenberg. So that's the Mexican buckeye. I want to feature one of the plants we're going to have at the sale. This is a red buckeye. Asculus pavia, beautiful red flowers. They only have leaves about 6 months a year. See, the time of the filming, this is July. You can see the leaves are dried on this. This is the north side of my house. Get a little bit sun now, but in the winter it's always in the shade. And this guy here, we're going to be selling these tree pots for $15 each. But this guy here, it's still got leaves, which is kind of surprising. So when you buy these, it's going to be a bunch of dormant dried sticks. And around Christmas time, you can look at these buds at the end here, and at Christmas you'll see them start to swell. And that's the first sign of spring's coming. These buds will swell up. These got beautiful leaves on them, ribbing. And like I say, I plant them on the north side of my house and the east side. The east side they'll struggle a little bit, but they come up and they bloom. You can look at one over there. See, here's one. You can hear my air conditioner, sorry about that. It's 99 degrees right now. But this one is kind of going to drop all its leaves, but it did good even though, you know, it gets afternoon shade. Okay. Holly, it's really neat. This guy I dug out of the barbed wire fence and transplanted. I need to prune it back, it's getting really big. But covered with red berries. The birds love them. It's the only native plant in Texas that contains caffeine. I actually baked some of these leaves, fed it to my fed the tea to my camping club as an experiment. They all lived, and so it had a lot of, the Native Americans would make this tea that was so strong from this it would cause them to vomit. And I read in it actually was in Benjamin Franklin's autobiography where he said they vomited without embarrassment. So, and the Latin name gives you a clue, Ilex vomitoria. Wildlife tree that people should get is mountain laurels. I heard the word mountain and I told the guy at the nursery that won't grow here, and he said they'll grow anywhere, which they do. Beautiful pink flowers, attracts a lot of swallowtails. Rusty black haw verbenum, likes part shade, understory tree, really cool waxy leaves, great pink flowers, and also white clusters that stand up of flowers on them. And you can see the waxy leaves.
Hello, my name is Emily Roussel. I'm a current student at Tarleton University and I'm studying horticulture management. And I'm just going to be showing you some of the how we plant these plants out here when there's heavy clay soil like this that's dried into basically a rock. So what we normally do is, this soil was moist when the auger dug it out, but since then we haven't had any rain, so it's kind of turned into a clay pot down there. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to break up the clay around the bottom of the hole and put it into the bottom so that the plant will sit just above the ground level, so it's not like inside a hole. So we just
That's incredible. You have to
Yeah.
use a hammer on it.
We just do that so that there's some clay in the bottom. And we take a half gallon of water and just put it in the hole until you can see the water. And right here we have a Texas coneflower that we're going to put in this hole. So Just pull it out.
Let's see the roots.
Yeah, this one has really long roots.
Look at that.
And then you set it in there. And then you just take some of the clay chunks and you put it back over.
That's right.
And then you take your other half gallon of water and you put it on the plant. And these haven't gotten any rain, but they're still looking good. Then you'll just hold up the leaves and squish around it with your boot. And you can see the water coming up from there. And that's how we plant the plants here.